didn't work how I wanted it to. It's like how we wanted it, where it's yeah, fully offline. And it didn't have to fall on each other. But
I don't think I find time of building exteriors.
well, then they have to like look at your contract or something. But it's contact the vendors where you decide to directly somehow buy it through them directly. They have a very precision because it's the enterprise IT environment, so it's all gotta be raising their own and doing things. Yeah, there's still time.
I do it. Like a shot.
Charge of trespassing or sued for
Loitering.
Yeah, I think this will activate, and we didn't activate earlier, but this is more for creating presentation and interactive
Yep, just walk them off.
buildings that was name stores. After all this stuff, thank you. Trust the recantation of
Bunch of crackheads in jailhouse.
that's what she's on you how much
maybe you did
You have to. That's
that's kind of like a good thing. Yeah. The park goes right up right at the right in the front.
Hey Lou, who's with me?
Jessica Hart. We're doing the county board meeting.
I had to circle the block 3 times waiting for him to move his car.
Oh, we drove up and I said, get back in there.
Was that you waiting?
Yeah, pull in. I said, move your damn car.
Yeah, because I drove by and I saw you blocking, so I circled, and then I saw, I didn't know it was you, but then on the sidewalk waiting, so then I circled again. How is he that oblivious to being ready to
He
block?
wasn't, he said, well, we have the county board meeting in 25 minutes. I'm like, well, then get in and move your car now so you can get up there.
So he was saying he was in a hurry? But did he recognize the fact that he was blocking the sidewalk before you pulled up?
I don't think he was thinking of other people.
I'm like, what? So I'm like, I hope he's still there, because otherwise I'm going to find where he puts the park. This is crazy.
He didn't move it.
Yeah, I know, so I finally got by him. But then the other Channel 5,
Yeah.
I forget his name, was also pretty
Yeah.
barely
Because he actually moved into the spot that Fearless was in. But just
managed to.
If you ask me very
That was tight though. I don't mind that.
I don't mind it actually.
I like it. It's just tough when you're not people, and it's just tough when people know somebody. But it just seemed to be the
Nobody who does it at that frequency has an excuse for nothing.
No.
Thank you all for being here. Today, I'm announcing that the Hennepin County Attorney's Office will be supporting a petition on behalf of Brian Hooper Sr. to vacate his 1998 conviction for the murder of Ann Prasniak. Longtime residents of the Twin Cities may remember this case due to its disturbing details. The 77-year-old victim's body was found in her bedroom closet, bound with tape, wrapped in a blanket and other materials, and beginning to decompose. It was a shocking crime. Compelling new evidence, however, shows that Brian Hooper did not commit this murder. Our Conviction Integrity Unit, or CIU, was already reviewing Brian Hooper's case when, on July 29th, we learned that the state's star trial witness had come forward on her own to not only recant her testimony against Mr. Hooper, but to confess that she was responsible for killing Ms. Prasniak and concealing her body. This individual has now confessed several times, including in a recent interview with MPD Sergeant Mark Suchta. These recorded confessions from someone with nothing to gain and a great deal to lose are extraordinarily compelling and make it impossible for us to stand behind the conviction of Brian Hooper. Brian Hooper has maintained his innocence for 27 years. And today with us is his daughter, Brianna Hooper, as well as many members of his family. Brianna has been fighting for his freedom, holding rallies, speaking out, and advocating for his release. Brianna, where are you? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry on behalf of our office. Absolutely sorry about what happened to your father. And I understand at the same time, sorry doesn't bring back those 27 years. What we're doing today, though, I hope is the beginning of getting your father out of prison. We would not have been able to take such swift action in the last 2 weeks to right this terrible wrong if it wasn't for Sergeant Suchta of the Minneapolis Police Department and the evidence and digital forensics staff at MPD who ensured that our CIU had what it needed to seek the truth here. We also want to thank members of the Great North Innocence Project who are representing Mr. Hooper. We are glad to have them here today. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Jeff Dean, who was Mr. Hooper's lawyer at the time, who adamantly maintained that Mr. Hooper was innocent. His theory was also that the person who has confessed now was the person who actually did this. In late July, the Minneapolis Police Department was informed by law enforcement in Georgia that a person incarcerated in a state prison there had confessed to the murder of Ann Prasniak. Sergeant Suchta set up a recorded interview with this person, and upon hearing the confession, promptly reached out to our office and asked that the confession be sent to our CIU. Our team at the CIU, already familiar with and investigating this case, then took action. They have been working many, many hours every single day since learning about this to verify the accuracy of the confessions, talk to witnesses, and submit a report and recommendation to me that we support Mr. Hooper's request for exoneration. Our team is up here with me today. I want to thank the team for all of its work. Andrew Markwart, Mutia Lawal, Julia Merritt, and Travis Sigafus. When it was clear that our office could not stand behind Mr. Hooper's conviction, the Great North Innocent Project stepped up to represent Mr. Hooper and file a petition to vacate his conviction. I want to thank everybody here who acted so quickly after learning of this confession to do everything we can to correct this injustice. Of course, whether Mr. Hooper's conviction is ultimately vacated will be up to the court. We believe, however, that the evidence plainly supports Mr. Hooper's innocence and that his claim is strong and worthy of our support. Before I conclude, I want to invite Andrew Marquardt, who leads our Conviction Integrity Unit, to say a few words.
Hello, everyone. So last July, we were here in this room to announce the creation of our new Conviction Integrity Unit. And as we explained then, the basic function of this unit is to review claims of wrongful conviction coming out of Hennepin County, and where we find that an injustice has occurred, to take action to remedy that injustice. And that's precisely what we're here seeking to do today in the case of Brian Hooper. So I want to give a high-level update on the work our CIU has been doing since last summer when we launched. Mr. Hooper is one of 175 individuals who have now applied requesting that we review their convictions. So far, we have completed an initial review of 116 of those cases. Of those, 48 are ones that we have decided we can't support relief. We've marked them for closing. 68, we have moved on to additional full investigation. Of those, we have started a full investigation on 14 cases, including Mr. Hooper's. So as we've said in the past, you know, it's a big deal for us to support an exoneration. It is not something we take lightly at all. So if we're going to stand up here and endorse an exoneration, it's only going to be after a very thorough investigation involving a careful review of all the available case files, witness interviews, depending on the nature of the case, DNA and forensic testing, consulting with experts, and only after that process, if we believe that there's a compelling basis for relief, will we offer our support. And this case certainly fits the bill. And as Mary suggested, you know, even though we have moved very, very fast, and I'm proud of how fast our team has worked in the past 2 weeks, it really is only because we'd put in a lot of time in this case leading up to the big break with the confessions, reviewing well over 10,000 pages of case files, that we were intimately familiar with the details of this case and were able to move fast. Because while we must, and we do approach these cases with caution and insist on rigor, at a certain point when it becomes apparent that we have a wrongful conviction, we are also committed to acting with the urgency that the situation demands, and that too we've done in this case. So we're supporting Mr. Hooper's exoneration today because we're convinced that the evidence points toward his innocence, and we hope that he will finally achieve his freedom soon after being denied justice for far too long. Thank you.
Before I conclude, I want to say a few words, and before we have some other people speak. Last July, we were here in this room to announce the creation of our Conviction Integrity Unit. As we explained then, the basic function of a CIU is to investigate claims of wrongful conviction coming out of Hennepin County, and where we discover that an injustice has occurred, work to remedy that injustice. And that is precisely what we are seeking to do today in the case of Brian Hooper. I want to give a high-level update. Actually, Andrew did talk about the number of cases they have. They have done an extraordinary job in working through these cases. The other thing I want to say is we work very hard to contact victims or next of kin in the early stages of the review process. To that end, in April, our team learned that the next of kin, unfortunately for Ms. Prasniak, has passed away. And neither we nor the Department of Corrections have been able to identify any other close family members of Ms. Prasniak. Second, I'll repeat what I said before, that it is the responsibility of conscientious prosecutors like those who work in this office to seek justice. And that includes correcting past wrongs. This is the third request for exoneration I've supported in my 2.5 years in office, and I do not think it will be the last. I'd like to invite up Jim Mayer, Legal Director of the Great North Innocence Project, and counsel for Brian Hooper.
Thank you, and thanks everyone. As you've already heard, two tragedies have brought us all together here. One of them being the senseless killing of Ann Prasniak back in 1998. The other being, of course, the 27 years that Brian Hooper has spent wrongfully imprisoned. Time that he was separated from his children, who are now grown, and children who he lost the opportunity to raise, and that is an immeasurable loss for this family. We're appreciative that as new information became available over the last few weeks, the Minneapolis Police Department took appropriate action, and the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, and in particular the Conviction Integrity Unit, worked quickly to reinvestigate and stepped forward and committed to doing the right thing in this case. We are very grateful at your commitment to justice in this case and your willingness to commit to it, even where that might mean revisiting a prior conclusion. We'd like to talk about how we want our prosecutors and our police to be tough on crime. We hear that a lot, but the thing that is the softest on crime is letting the actual guilty party free and keeping an innocent person behind bars. So this is not a time for celebration, and we are not here to pat ourselves on the back. In fact, I think to do so at this stage would be an insult to the Hooper family and to what they've been through and to what they continue to go through. The fact is that as we stand here, Brian Hooper is still locked up in Stillwater Prison, and the Hooper family will never get back the decades that they have lost. What this means for us as people who are actors in the criminal legal system is not a celebration, but a moment of reckoning. That's what this should be, a moment of reckoning, an opportunity we can use to look in the mirror, to reflect on how it is that we collectively failed the Hooper family over these past 27 years, all of us. The fact is that Brian Hooper is innocent, and yet somehow he was convicted of murder, somehow he was sentenced to life in prison, and somehow that was held up on appeal. And somehow, through 6 separate efforts to obtain post-conviction relief, to challenge that conviction in state court, in federal court, rejected every single time. Many of those claims never had an evidentiary hearing on their merits in court. They were dismissed on procedural grounds. We have to face this uncomfortable reality and draw lessons from it that we can use going forward. Our system makes mistakes. A strong criminal legal system is not one that insists on its own infallibility. A strong system is one that faces up to and confronts its failures, fixes its mistakes, and works to repair the harm that's been caused. We are taking a small step down that road today, but let's acknowledge that we still have a long way to travel.
Brianna Hooper.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Mary, Andrew, CIU, Jim from the Great Northern, and the community who has continuously stood by my side and my family's side through this fight. I just want to honor the fact that you guys have stood up here, taken the time to review my father's case, and to publicly announce what we've all known for 27 years. That my father, Brian Hooper Sr., is an innocent man, and he's always been an innocent man. 27 years of missed birthdays, missed milestones, holidays, 27 years of lost opportunity and time that we can't get back. But today we don't have to lose. We don't. We have an opportunity to bring justice to my father, my family, and the community. We have an opportunity to shed light and use my father's story to shed light on the other people who are sitting behind bars for crimes that they did not commit. So I just want to give thanks to this opportunity to continue to share his story, because Brian Hooper Sr. is an innocent man, and he deserves to come home. He deserves for his name to be cleared and justice to be restored. Thank you.
We'll take questions, but out of respect for the family, they're just not ready yet to field questions from the press.
I have a question, then a follow-up. Are you going to file murder charges against this woman who's now confessed?
I think first we're going to see which judge gets assigned this petition and try to get Mr. Hooper out as quickly as possible. That's one of those questions we'll have to sort through once that's done.
And then, so to follow up with that, you mentioned that this woman had a lot to lose, and there's certain things that makes her confession more believable. And we sometimes hear about, like, for example, someone who is spending life in prison and they might confess to something to try to help out somebody else. Can you go a little bit, or comment a little bit more on why her confession is so believable?
Yes, so the question is, sometimes we hear about people who are in prison the rest of their life, and so confessing to something there really isn't, they don't have a lot to lose. So she is not in prison the rest of her life. In fact, if I remember correctly, she will be out in about 4 years. So she'll be out in 4 years. I will say she also expects to be charged with murder. She knows exactly what she's getting into here, so she certainly has a lot to lose.
Do you know what prompted her then to come forward with this, how that occurred?
So the question is what prompted her to come forward. Based on the interviews, there have been multiple interviews with her. She's in a kind of rural prison in Georgia, and she talks about having received the support that she's needed for the first time. She, at the time this happened, was 23 years old. She was pregnant. She was struggling with substance use. The father of her child brought her here and then left her here. And what she talks about is the fact that she's had an opportunity to receive the support that she needs. Also, she feels that kind of a stronger pull to God. And she has said that if that's going to be the path of her life, she certainly can't allow Brian Hooper to spend another day in prison.
Mr. Hooper had taken his case all the way to the state Supreme Court, post-conviction court. I wonder if you can talk about the hurdles that people face when they're trying to prove their innocence. I mean, I think even back then, this is 12 years ago, he had said that this person, I believe it's the same person, had confessed to the crime. So anyway, I just think about how long it can take for this to show proof of somebody with crime.
Yes, so the question is about the hurdles that somebody who believes that they're innocent or to get to this point has to go through to hopefully get to this point. One of the things that Jim talked about are procedural bars. Those are simply defenses that the county attorney's office can make just to say that the person has not brought the claims in a timely fashion. And so when the county attorney's office does that, the court typically accepts that and actually doesn't give the person a hearing on the actual merits of the case. So I mentioned Jeff Dean because his defense the entire time was that this woman committed this crime. And at the same time, I think what happens is you get a witness who says, and apparently was convincing to the jury, that it was Mr. Hooper that committed this crime. Those can sometimes be difficult cases for courts on appeal because they give great deference to the jury. They are reluctant to second guess a jury who's actually seen that person and heard that person. So that creates barriers as well. But the longer a case goes on, it's very hard to get back into court. So I think this is important because I know sometimes people will say, well, he's had his opportunity in court, he's had appeals, the Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court, what have you, have not given him relief. The important thing to remember there is that the appellate courts did not see these people in person. They don't look at the entire record in terms of when we're asserting that they brought the evidence too late, they're not even looking at any of those claims. So it can be a really, really tough way to go. In fact, if you'll remember in Marvin Haynes, we actually waived the barrier. It's called NAFLA, if you want to be in the weeds. But we waived that procedural bar to allow Marvin Haynes to get into court to present his case. But in many cases, county attorney's office will say, hey, too late, and then the person won't even get into court.
It was controversial at that time because then they find her fingerprints in the body and her plea deal was for burglary. I mean,
So
it sounds like it was kind of back then too. Was that?
yes, so the question is, wasn't this controversial at the time? Wasn't this woman's fingerprints found at the scene? So just briefly, MPD did take fingerprints. People knew that once Ms. they didn't know it at the time, but Ms. Prasniak was put in a box in her closet. And so people who were struggling with substance use would come in and use her apartment to use drugs. Now, Mr. Hooper has always been very honest about the fact that he was in the apartment for that purpose, which is why his fingerprints were found there. But in interest, and I think you're remembering this, so Ms. Prasniak was tied up with tape. And Brian Hooper's fingerprints were not on that tape. But you know whose were? The woman who's confessed to the crime today. She spoke to the police multiple times, and I think in one of the statements towards the end, when she implicated Mr. Hooper, she concocted a story where she said she was standing outside with the tape, peeling off pieces of the tape and handing them to Brian Hooper, which is just not terribly believable. But you're right. At the time, this was a tough case. This was a tough case.
And so in that vein, in looking back on this whole thing, and if anybody else has a better, I don't mind who answers it, but how do they decide to go after Brian instead of after her? If she had details that only the killer would know, how was that decision made that he's the suspect and not her?
I was not here then. We don't have the answer to that question. There were people who were incentivized, got breaks, what we might refer to as jailhouse informants, that also implicated Mr. Hooper. They have all recanted. They recanted a long time ago. And one of the things we did when we got this confession was to try to follow up with those witnesses to see whether they were still recanting. One is deceased. We were able to reach two. They both said absolutely. Mr. Hooper did not say what I said he said. The other one we were not able to reach. I will say this, our policies have changed a great deal. And should this case come here today, we do not use jailhouse informants unless there are exceptional circumstances, and those have to be approved by me.
Mary, what is the woman in the Georgia prison in prison for? What was her conviction?
Aggravated battery, which would be some kind of assault.
Final question.
What's the timeline to release right now? What does that look like going forward?
So the case has to be assigned to a judge. The judge who heard the case is no longer on the bench, and so it has to be assigned to a judge, and they would have 90 days in which to make a decision.
Was there prosecutorial misconduct here, do you think?
No. The question is, was there prosecutorial misconduct? We are, and I think this is important, we are always called upon to make judgments. Very often, the evidence that we see is not terribly clear-cut. I can imagine at the time there was a lot of public pressure here because of the nature of this crime, and so I would not say there was misconduct here. There was a judgment call by the prosecutors at the time to go forward at the time.
Brianna, do you mind just spelling your name for us, please, so we don't get it wrong, your first name?
Sure, it's Brianna, B-R-I-A-N-A.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perhaps you can speak on behalf of the family, but how was Mr. Hooper taking all this news?
I know that Jim, do you want to answer that?
I think there are two reactions that the family is having, and Mr. Hooper is no different. One reaction being excitement and joy that he may soon be rejoining his family and community, and the other being it's about damn time. I don't know how to say it other than that.